What happens when a prince won't play nice and a television host crosses the line? You're about to witness a clash that didn't just rattle the studio. It fractured the very illusion of civility on live TV. But before we go further, don't forget to subscribe and drop a comment. What do you think truly triggered this showdown? The lights were blinding. The audience hushed. Prince Harry sat opposite Piers Morgan, not as a royal, but as a man already bracing for impact, and Morgan wasted no time. "Let's not dance around it," he began, voice sharpened to a point. "You've accused your own family of racism, abandonment, betrayal. Some say you sold them out for a media payday." Harry didn't flinch. His eyes locked on Morgan's. "I came here for a conversation," he said, voice even. "Not to be interrogated with tabloid venom dressed up as journalism." Morgan smirked. "Venom. These are the same questions millions are asking. You left a palace for a podcast. The world wants to know, was it conviction or just convenience?" Harry leaned forward. "No raise in volume. Just steal in every word. Conviction is staying silent while your wife is vilified. Convenience is pretending that public adoration cancels private trauma." Morgan jabbed again. "You talk about trauma while signing Netflix deals and booking speaking tours. Sounds less like trauma, more like monetization." The temperature in the studio shifted. Harry's tone turned clinical. "You confuse survival with strategy. When the institution you trust leaks against your own wife, silence is complicity." "I refused silence." Morgan leaned back, eyes narrowed. "That institution paid for your wedding, protected you, gave you a title, and you turned around and called them racist." Harry's reply was surgical. "Were you in the rooms where the color of my unborn child's skin was discussed like a liability?" "No." "Then maybe don't tell me what loyalty looks like." Morgan's voice dropped, oily with insinuation. "Right. Racism. The all-purpose shield. Unprovable, untouchable, yet endlessly useful." Harry's hands gripped the armrest. His voice, still level, deadly. "My children will grow up knowing someone once questioned their worth before they were even born. If you find that convenient, you're beyond help." Morgan pressed harder. "You've weaponized pain. You've wrapped your story in grief, and now you sell it by the chapter. Even your mother's name isn't off limits." The room went silent. Then Harry stood. Don't you invoke her." Morgan didn't budge. "Deanna would be ashamed of this circus." Harry's eyes went cold. "No. What she'd be ashamed of is that the press still thinks grief is a prop and trauma is a price tag." The host's voice rose. "You want to talk press? I started from nothing. No crown. No castle. Just work. You've never known that kind of pressure." Harry stared at him unmoved. "You're right. I've never worried about rent. I've only worried about assassins, death threats, and whether my wife would survive the next news cycle you helped fuel." Morgan scoffed. "Where's your proof? Police reports, evidence, or just another carefully managed PR sob story?" Harry's voice dropped to a whisper, cool, deliberate, lethal. "You want proof. You want me to compromise active security protocols just to satisfy your ratings. You want me to risk my family's safety for your narrative." He leaned in. "That's not journalism, Piers. That's predation." Morgan's jaw clenched, but before he could fire back, Harry delivered the final strike. "I didn't walk away from royalty. I walked away from rot. And the real question isn't why I left. It's why you can't stop chasing what I escaped." The studio fell into stunned silence. The screen faded to black. Morgan saw an opening and drove the blade deeper. "What I want is transparency. No more smoke, no more victim curtain. If these threats are real, produce something, anything, without compromising security." Well, Harry's voice stayed level, but a tremor betrayed him. "The fact you'd even ask shows how little you grasp the world I live in. Real threats aren't TV fodder, Piers. Treating them like ratings bait proves how detached you are." Morgan let out a harsh laugh. "Detached? From a man preaching hardship while lounging in a fixed 60-day million Montecito palace. Spare us the lecture on reality." Your Royal Highness. Harry's composure shattered. You're right. I am privileged and wealthy. That doesn't void my right to protect my family or call out injustice when I see it. But Morgan pounced. Injustice. Palaces. Private schools. Servants. That's your injustice. Tell me what's real injustice to a prince. The Harry's reply cracked like a whip. What happened to my mother? What happened to my wife? What happens to anyone crushed by the machine you and your colleagues keep oiling? Morgan's eyes narrowed. Diana again. How would she feel, Harry, knowing you use her memory as a shield to duck responsibility? The studio went still. Harry's voice dropped to a ghost-quiet whisper. My mother died chasing a sliver of happiness, hunted by cameras that saw profit in her pain. People like you created that market. Don't dare ask how she'd feel. Morgan softened his tone, but it only sharpened the blade. I interviewed her. The woman I met would never want her sons abandoning duty and country. Harry's laugh was hollow. You knew her. You filmed a few interviews. You never saw the palace corridors, never heard the phone calls, never watched the gears grind her down. Morgan stepped in. What gears? Be specific. From here. It looks like you blame everyone but the driver of that car. Harry's voice surged. The crash was an end result. The machine that cornered her into that tunnel. Relentless tabloids, palace PR, public bloodlust. That machine's still running. Morgan leaned closer. Voice a venomous whisper. And you, innocent. You've made millions trashing the crown, built a brand on betrayal. Where's your halo in that? Harry fired back, volume rising. I'm breaking the cycle, ensuring my children never relive that nightmare, creating a world where they're safe from the toxicity you monetize. Morgan scoffed. Hollywood deals. Tell-all memoirs. Your antidote to toxicity. At least it's honest, Harry snapped. I'm not polishing lies while people suffer in silence. Morgan's voice hit a crescendo. And the lives you've wrecked with your accusations. Loyal staff tarred as villains. What about them? Harry's eyes blazed. You think I fabricated my wife's suicidal thoughts, the racism, her treatment by your precious institution. Morgan dropped his voice, lethal and cold. I think you learned outrage sells, victimhood streams. The welder the claim, the fatter the check. The words hung like toxic fog. Harry's fists shook at his sides. He spoke so softly the mic strained to catch it. You think this is about money? You think I wanted any of this? Watching my wife crumble, being cut off from my family. Profit, Piers. That's your fantasy. Not mine. The studio lights seemed to flicker with the weight of it. No one moved. No one breathed, and both men knew the next sentence could scorch everything. You think I enjoyed starting over in a foreign country with nothing but the clothes on my back? Harry snapped. Morgan's scoff cut through the air. The clothes on your back. Please. You had millions in inheritance from Diana. You had royal connections most people would give their right arm for. You had doors opening before you even reached the doormat. Don't insult our viewers by pretending you were some penniless refugee. Harry's jaw clenched. Fine. You want to talk money? Let's talk money. Let's talk about how much you've made off my family's suffering. How many clicks, headlines, and dollars came from our pain. Let's talk about how your entire industry profits from turning our lives into a circus. Morgan's face darkened. That's rich. Coming from someone who inked a $100 million deal with Netflix. Someone who cashed in with a memoir that sold your family chapter by chapter. Someone who's turned palace drama into a personal brand. Harry leaned in, voice cold and precise. At least I'm telling my own story. At least I'm in control of my narrative. At least I'm not letting people like you twist it for ratings while I stay silent and suffer. Morgan's voice cracked with anger. Suffer. Lies and speculation, is that what you call it? I've spent my career reporting facts, holding powerful people to account, asking the questions that others are too scared to ask. Harry's bitter laugh cut through him. Is that what you think this is? A noble pursuit. This isn't journalism, it's character assassination. It's baiting me into sound bites you can replay on every platform for the next week. The studio's tension was suffocating now. Morgan's producer waved frantically behind the camera, but both men were locked in, deaf to everything but the fire between them. Morgan stepped back, voice tight with frustration, bordering on desperation. You think this is about sound bites? This is about accountability. About a man who abandoned his role, turned on his own blood, and built an empire on victimhood and destruction. Harry's voice roared back. Abandoned my role. My role was never to be a silent participant in generational trauma. My duty was to protect my family. My duty was to stop the cycle of abuse that's rotted the royal family from the inside for decades. My duty was to make damn sure my children don't grow up in the same gilded cage that nearly killed me. Morgan pounced again. The same toxic environment that gave you elite schooling, security, wealth, influence. The same system that gave you more than 99% of the world could ever hope for. Privilege doesn't protect you from emotional abuse. Harry shot back, his voice cracking with rage. Privilege doesn't protect you from being gaslit by your own flesh and blood. Privilege doesn't protect you from watching the woman you love fall apart while the very institution that's meant to protect her watches and does nothing. Morgan's glare narrowed to a blade. Gaslighting? Those are serious claims, Harry. Claims that destroy reputations, that stain lives. Do you have any proof? Or are we just supposed to believe you because you're a prince? Harry's laugh was sharp, raw, wounded. When have I ever asked anyone to take my word for anything? Everything I've said, everything, is backed by evidence, witnesses, documentation. The only reason you're questioning it is because it doesn't fit the narrative you need to sell. And in that moment, under the burning lights and blinking cameras, the air between them felt ready to shatter. My narrative. Morgan stepped closer, his voice dropping to a cold whisper. My narrative is the truth. That you found a way to turn victimhood into a brand. That the more outrageous your claims, the more sympathy you collect. And the more sympathy you collect, the more money you make. Harry's face blanched with fury. You want to talk about profiting off tragedy? Let's talk about your career, Piers. Let's talk about how you've built your name on the misery of others. Let's talk about the millions you've made turning other people's pain into spectacle. Morgan's voice rose. I made my money telling the truth. I made my money asking the questions no one else would dare. I've spent my life holding powerful people to account. You call this accountability? Harry barked, eyes burning. You call ambushing a man trying to protect his family some kind of moral crusade. You call victim blaming and public humiliation journalism. Morgan's face flushed dark red. Victim blaming. You're not a victim. Harry, you're a perpetrator. You've caused more pain and division than you're willing to admit. You've betrayed the millions who once looked up to you. Harry's voice cracked. I've told the truth. My truth. I've tried to expose a system that protects abusers and punishes survivors. If that's betrayal, then fine. I'm guilty. Morgan laughed, sharp and bitter. There's no such thing as your truth, Harry. There's the truth. And the truth is, you abandoned your country, your family, and your duty for a Netflix deal and a spotlight. Harry stood frozen for a beat, chest heaving. Then his voice came low and steady. You're right about one thing, Piers. I did abandon something. I abandoned the lie. I abandoned the silence that protected the powerful. I abandoned my so-called duty to uphold a system that values optics over lives. Morgan's tone turned cutting. Then you're not fit to be a royal. You don't have the strength or character to carry the weight that comes with the crown. Harry's face twisted in disbelief, pain crashing into rage. Not fit. You think I haven't given enough, sacrificed enough, lost enough. Morgan's voice dropped to a lethal calm. You've never understood sacrifice. You confuse selfishness with bravery, cowardice with courage. Harry's hands trembled. Cowardice, he repeated, voice rising. You think protecting my wife is cowardice. You think standing up to a centuries-old machine is cowardice. You think fighting for my children's future is cowardice. I think walking away when things get hard is cowardice. Morgan thundered. I think throwing your family under the bus for profit is cowardice. Harry's voice broke into a strangled roar. Profit? What have I gained, Piers? I've lost my family. I've lost my country. I've lost who I was. What exactly do you think I've won? Morgan didn't hesitate. You've gained millions. You've gained global fame. You've gained a narrative you control. That's your prize, Harry. You just don't want to admit it. Harry stood still, his whole body trembling. You think money replaces love. You think fame replaces a family. You think a platform replaces peace. Morgan's voice dropped again, calm and cruel. No, I think you made your choices, and now you don't like the consequences. You burned the bridge, and you're angry it won't let you back across. Silence fell. The only sound was Harry's labored breathing. He looked around the studio, his gaze wild, unfocused, like a man who just realized he'd stepped into a trap. Then, suddenly calm, Harry looked up. You're right, he said. I made my choices, and I'd make them again, because my children's safety is worth more than your approval. My wife's life is worth more than your respect, and my family's peace is worth more than your damn headlines. Morgan smiled, slow and venomous. There it is. You don't care about service or duty or the greater good. You care about your own. You've proven my point. Harry looked at him for a long moment, his expression unreadable. You know what the real tragedy is, Piers, he said quietly. It's not that I let you down. It's that you've become so obsessed with tearing people apart, you've forgotten how to help anyone rise. Morgan's laugh was incredulous. I'm holding you accountable. That's not tearing you down. That's helping you grow up. Harry shook his head. No. What you're doing is exactly what killed my mother. What you're doing is what nearly killed my wife. What you're doing is exactly what I've spent my adult life trying to escape. He turned and began walking toward the exit, every step deliberate. You can't walk away from this, Harry. Morgan shouted after him. You can't run when the questions get hard. You can't run again. Harry stopped at the door. Turned. Watch me, he said and walked out. Morgan stood alone under the studio lights, breathing hard. He had his viral moment, his headlines, his victory, and yet it felt hollow. He turned back to the camera, voice wavering slightly. There you have it. Prince Harry, ladies and gentlemen, showing his true colors when challenged. But as the cameras rolled, even Morgan could feel that something had shifted. Harry had left on his terms. Dignity intact, conviction unshaken, and somehow that felt less like a win and more like defeat. Because in the end, the prince had chosen truth over tradition, peace over approval, and family over the institution that failed them. And that choice spoke louder than any answer he could have given. What do you think pushed Prince Harry over the edge? Was it Morgan's personal attacks, or something much deeper? Let me know in the comments.